The stars looked different from the observation deck of Council Station Prime. Ambassador Helen Carter stood at the massive viewing window, watching ships from 12 different species dock at the orbital facility. Some vessels gleamed like silver, teardrops, others moved like living creatures through space, and a few looked more like floating cities than ships. Earth's vessels stood out among them all, angular and practical, built for war even when carrying diplomats. Helen had served as Earth's representative to the Galactic Confederation for 8 years. She understood the delicate balance that kept peace between species that had been fighting each other for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. The Confederation worked because everyone followed the rules, especially the most important one about fleet interactions. The Universal Fleet Doctrine was simple in words but complex in practice. No species could interfere with another's military vessels without permission. For most alien races, this meant avoiding conflicts and sticking to trade routes. For humanity, it meant something much more dangerous. Other species feared human ships, not because they were the biggest or had the best weapons, but because humans would do things that other species considered insane. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the EFS Horizon, patrolling the outer rim territories where different species mined asteroids and conducted trade. His ship was one of only 50 Earth vessels assigned to monitor the vast frontier regions. Jake's crew trusted him completely. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Warren handled communications and kept track of diplomatic protocols. Chief Engineer Bobby Chang made sure their ship could outrun or outfight anything they encountered. Tactical Officer Alex Rivera studied alien weapon systems and ship designs, always preparing for the worst. The Vorthon Empire controlled a large section of space near human territory. The Vorthani were reptilian creatures who valued honor and strength above everything else. Their scales changed color based on their emotions, and their ships looked like giant metal serpents moving through space. General Kresh led their military forces and believed humans were too violent and unpredictable for civilized space. 3 human colony ships had requested passage through Vorthon territory to reach a newly discovered world suitable for human life. The ships carried 50,000 civilians, including families with children and Earth's best scientists and engineers. The new colony would focus on research that could benefit all Confederation species, but the Vorthani saw it as human expansion into their sphere of influence. Helen received the first reports while reviewing trade agreements in her office aboard Council Station. The Vorthani had deployed 15 heavy cruisers to escort the human colony ships through their territory. General Kresh claimed this was standard procedure for foreign vessels, but Helen knew better. The Vorthani fleet outnumbered the colony, ships minimal escort by 10 to 1. The situation escalated when Vorthon ships demanded to conduct security inspections of the human vessels. They wanted to scan every compartment and examine all computer systems, claiming to search for illegal weapons. The colony ships carried advanced research equipment and databases containing sensitive information about human technology. Allowing the Vorthani access would be like handing them the keys to Earth's military secrets. Captain Nicole Thompson commanded the lead colony ship and tried to negotiate with the Vorthani. She explained that the ships carried only civilians and research equipment, but General Kresh insisted on his inspections. The Vorthon fleet surrounded the human vessels, making it impossible for them to continue their journey or return to Earth space. Jake Morrison received orders from Earth Fleet Command to observe and report, but not engage. Admiral Patricia Hayes made it clear that any military action could trigger a war that humanity might not survive. The Confederation had rules about fleet conflicts, but those rules assumed that reasonable beings could resolve disputes through diplomacy. The Vorthani seemed determined to push the situation beyond reasonable limits. Helen contacted the Galactic Council immediately, requesting an emergency session to address the Vorthon actions. The bureaucratic process would take weeks to produce any results, and General Kresh knew this. He could do whatever he wanted to the human ships as long as he claimed to follow Confederation law. Other species watched the crisis develop with interest. The Zephyrian Alliance, a collective of insectoid creatures, had always questioned whether humans belonged in civilized space. The crystalline hegemony valued order above all else, and suggested that humans should accept Vorthon guidance in their expansion efforts. Only the Terran Commonwealth, a species that looked similar to humans, offered any support. Elder Marcus Finn represented the Terran Commonwealth and had personal experience with Vorthon tactics. His people had faced similar security inspections 3 centuries earlier, which led to the near extinction of their civilization. He warned Helen that the Vorthani always escalated these situations until they could justify more aggressive actions. The colony ships remained trapped in Vorthon space while politicians debated and military commanders calculated odds. 50,000 human civilians waited to learn their fate, surrounded by alien warships and cut off from any help. The Vorthani had not yet violated the fleet doctrine technically, but everyone knew they were preparing to cross that line. Helen prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. She understood that this crisis would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. The other species would judge humans based on how they handled this challenge, and failure could mean isolation or even expulsion from the Confederation. The clock was ticking, and General Kresh held all the cards. Jake Morrison read his orders 3 times before accepting what they meant. Earth Fleet Command wanted him to watch while 50,000 humans remained trapped by Vorthon warships. Admiral Patricia Hayes had made the message clear: observe and report, but do not engage under any circumstances. Starting a war with the Vorthani Empire would destroy everything humanity had built in the galaxy. A second message arrived on an encrypted personal channel from Commander Ryan Walsh aboard the EFS Defender, positioned 3 star systems away. Jake and Ryan had served together for 10 years and trusted each other completely. The personal message contained intelligence that changed everything about the situation. Ryan's crew had intercepted Vorthon communications revealing the true purpose of their security inspections. The scans were not searching for weapons, but mapping human ship designs and downloading technical databases. The Vorthani wanted to learn how human technology worked, especially the quantum drive systems that made human ships faster than most alien vessels. The 3 colony ships carried more than just families and research equipment. Dr. Frank Butler, Earth's leading expert in quantum field manipulation, was aboard the lead ship along with his entire research team. Professor Linda Ross, whose work in alien psychology had helped establish peaceful contact with 6 different species, traveled with her students and decades of research data. If the Vorthani gained access to this information, they could build ships that matched human capabilities while keeping their superior numbers and firepower. The balance of power in the galaxy would shift dramatically in their favor. Other species would have to choose between accepting Vorthon dominance or allying with whoever could resist them. Helen Carter faced increasing pressure from other Confederation species during emergency council sessions. The Zephyrian Alliance questioned why humans needed such advanced technology for a research colony. Their insectoid representatives clicked and buzzed among themselves, suggesting that human research was actually military preparation for conquest. The crystalline hegemony valued order and stability above individual rights. Their silicon-based minds processed information differently than organic species, leading them to see the Vorthon demands as reasonable security measures. They proposed that humans should accept Vorthon oversight of their expansion activities to prevent future conflicts. Elder Marcus Finn provided the only support Helen received from other species. The Terran Commonwealth had learned painful lessons about Vorthon tactics centuries earlier. Marcus privately shared historical records showing how the Vorthani had used identical methods against his people, always escalating until they provoked, a response that justified even more aggressive actions. The Vorthani had systematically destroyed Terran colonies by claiming they posed security threats. Each time, they demanded inspections that revealed evidence of military preparations. The Terran Commonwealth had tried to comply with every demand, but compliance only encouraged further Vorthon aggression. By the time the Terrans realized what was happening, their civilization was nearly extinct. Commander Ryan Walsh moved his ship closer to the crisis zone despite orders to maintain distance. His crew included navigator Susan Blake, who could calculate hyperspace jumps with incredible precision. Security Chief Tony Martinez had studied Vorthan military tactics for years and understood their weaknesses. Medical Officer Dr. Kate Sullivan specialized in treating injuries caused by alien technology. The EFS Defender intercepted more Vorthon communications that revealed the full scope of their plan. General Kresh intended to claim that human colony ships were carrying illegal weapons, justifying their seizure and interrogation of all passengers. The Vorthani had fabricated evidence sophisticated enough to convince several council members that humans were planning military expansion rather than peaceful research. Jake Morrison faced an impossible decision. He could follow orders and watch, while the Vorthani slowly strangled the human colony ships, or he could act independently and trigger a war that might destroy Earth's place in the galaxy. Either choice would have consequences that lasted for generations. The colony ships began experiencing technical problems as Vorthan scanning beams intensified. Captain Nicole Thompson reported system failures throughout her vessel as alien sensors probed deeper into human technology. The other two colony ships experienced similar problems, and their captains worried about life support failures if the scanning continued. Dr. Frank Butler worked desperately to protect his research data from Vorthon intrusion. His quantum field theories could revolutionize space travel for all species, but in Vorthon hands, they would become tools of conquest. Butler prepared to implement Protocol 7, a complete data purge that would destroy months of work but protect human technological secrets. Professor Linda Ross observed Vorthan behavior patterns and reached disturbing conclusions about their intentions. Her psychological analysis suggested that General Kresh was not acting impulsively, but following a carefully planned strategy designed to humiliate humanity before the entire galaxy. The Vorthani wanted other species to see humans as weak and unworthy of Confederation membership. Helen Carter presented evidence of Vorthan aggression to the Galactic Council, but bureaucratic procedures moved slowly while the crisis escalated. General Kresh arrived personally at Council Station to defend his actions, bringing sophisticated holographic evidence that made human colony ships appear threatening rather than peaceful. The fabricated evidence showed hidden weapon compartments and military communication systems that did not actually exist. However, the technology used to create these false images was advanced enough to fool many council members. Several species began questioning whether humans had been honest about their expansion plans. Jake Morrison sent a coded message to the colony ships warning them to prepare for the worst. If the Vorthani attempted to board their vessels or access their computers, they should implement all security protocols regardless of the consequences. Losing research data was preferable to handing advanced technology to an aggressive enemy. The situation deteriorated as both sides prepared for conflict. Vorthon warships moved into attack positions around the human colony ships while claiming to provide protective escort services. General Kresh announced that full inspections would begin within hours, with or without human cooperation. Earth Fleet Command maintained their orders for non-engagement, but Admiral Hayes included a personal note for Jake Morrison. The note simply said that Earth would not abandon its people, regardless of official policy. Jake understood the hidden meaning and began preparing his ship for what might come next. The communication blackout began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Vorthon jamming systems activated simultaneously across their fleet, cutting off all contact between the human colony ships and the outside galaxy. General Kresh announced that this measure was necessary to prevent humans from coordinating hostile actions, but everyone understood the real purpose. No one could witness what happened next. Captain Nicole Thompson tried to maintain calm aboard her colony ship as frightened families gathered in common areas. 12,000 people looked to her for leadership, while Vorthan warships surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. The ship carried children who had never seen Earth, scientists whose life's work was stored in the vessel's computers, and elderly colonists seeking a peaceful place to spend their final years. Dr. Frank Butler worked frantically in his laboratory, as Vorthan, scanning beams penetrated deeper into the ship's systems. His quantum field research represented decades of theoretical work that could advance galactic civilization by centuries. The equations and experimental data filled massive storage systems throughout the vessel, protected by encryption that the Vorthani were systematically breaking. Professor Linda Ross monitored Vorthan's psychological patterns through their communication, intercepts. Her analysis revealed that General Kresh was following a predetermined plan designed to justify whatever actions he took next. The Vorthani had used similar tactics against other species, always claiming self-defense while committing acts of aggression. The first boarding shuttles launched from Vorthan warships just after midday. General Kresh announced that armed inspection teams would conduct necessary security sweeps of all human vessels to locate hidden weapons and military equipment. Captain Thompson protested that the colony ships carried only civilians and research materials, but the Vorthan general ignored her objections. When the first Vorthan soldiers forced their way aboard the lead colony ship, Captain Thompson activated Protocol 7. Emergency procedures wiped clean all research databases and communication, logs destroying months of scientific work to protect human technological secrets. The data purge triggered alarms throughout the ship as critical information vanished forever. General Kresh immediately claimed that the data destruction proved human guilt and deception. He announced that all 3 colony ships would be impounded, pending a complete investigation of their hostile activities. Vorthan boarding parties spread throughout the human vessels, searching every compartment and interrogating anyone they encountered. This action officially violated the Universal Fleet Doctrine for the first time in over a century. By forcibly boarding human vessels and detaining civilians without Confederation approval, the Vorthani had crossed the line that even their political allies could not ignore. However, General Kresh calculated that bureaucratic responses would take weeks while he accomplished his real objectives. Jake Morrison received fragments of emergency transmissions before the communication blackout became complete. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Warren analyzed the signal patterns and confirmed that Vorthan forces were using neural probe devices on human civilians. The alien technology was designed to extract information directly from organic minds, but human brain chemistry made the process extremely dangerous. Commander Ryan Walsh aboard the EFS Defender intercepted medical emergency codes from the colony ships before all signals were cut off. Dr. Kate Sullivan examined the partial data and reached horrifying conclusions about what the Vorthani were doing to human prisoners. The neural probing equipment was causing permanent brain damage to anyone subjected to the procedures. Helen Carter presented this evidence to an emergency session of the Galactic Council, but General Kresh dismissed the claims as human propaganda. He argued that Vorthan neural interfaces were perfectly safe and that humans were simply incompatible with standard galactic interrogation techniques due to their primitive neural structure. The Terran Commonwealth's Elder Marcus Finn provided historical documentation proving that the Vorthani had used identical tactics against his people 3 centuries earlier. The interrogations had continued until the Terran Commonwealth was forced to reveal the locations of all their hidden colonies, leading to systematic conquest and near extinction. Other council members remained divided about the crisis. The Zephyrian Alliance suggested that humans had brought the situation on themselves by expanding too aggressively into contested space. The crystalline hegemony valued order above individual suffering, and proposed that the Vorthani be allowed to complete their investigation before any judgment was made. Aboard the colony ships, Vorthon interrogation teams worked systematically through lists of human passengers. They focused particularly on scientists and engineers, using neural probes to extract technical knowledge about human technology. Dr. Butler was among the first taken for questioning, his expertise in quantum fields making him a high priority target. The elderly scientist endured hours of neural probing as Vorthon technicians tried to extract his research from his memories. The alien devices caused severe neurological trauma, but Butler refused to cooperate with his interrogators. His resistance only encouraged them to increase the intensity of their procedures. Professor Linda Ross was subjected to different interrogation. Techniques focused on extracting information about human psychology and social structures. The Vorthani wanted to understand how humans made decisions and what motivated their aggressive behavior. Ross tried to provide false information, but the neural probes made deception extremely difficult. Captain Thompson fought to maintain order aboard her ship as Vorthan's soldiers spread throughout the vessel. The aliens claimed to be searching for hidden weapons, but they were obviously more interested in the ship's computer systems and technical equipment. They dismantled communication arrays and navigation computers, taking everything back to their own vessels for analysis. Jake Morrison calculated the odds of a rescue mission and reached grim conclusions. 2 Earth fleet vessels could not defeat 15 Vorthan heavy cruisers and their support ships. Any attack would result in the destruction of both human warships and likely the massacre of all 50,000 civilians aboard the colony ships. However, the mathematics changed when Dr. Butler's condition became critical. The elderly scientist's body could not handle the neural probing procedures, and his vital signs began failing during an extended interrogation session. Vorthan medical technicians tried to stabilize him while continuing their extraction attempts, but human physiology proved too different from their usual subjects. The first human death occurred 18 hours after the boarding began. Dr. Frank Butler died on a Vorthon interrogation table while alien technicians tried to download the contents of his mind. His death was broadcast accidentally on an open communication channel before the Vorthani could suppress the transmission. The image spread throughout human space within hours as automated relay systems carried the signal beyond Vorthan jamming range. Earth's citizens saw their greatest scientist lying lifeless on an alien examination table, his face twisted in pain from procedures that had killed him slowly. The galactic rules had failed to protect human civilians from torture and murder. Earth Fleet Command received the transmission showing Dr. Butler's death at 0347 hours, ship time. Admiral Patricia Hayes watched the horrific footage 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs. The images showed Earth's most brilliant scientist lying dead on a Vorthon examination table, his body broken by alien torture devices designed to extract information from his dying brain. The political implications were staggering. 50,000 human civilians remained trapped aboard colony ships surrounded by Vorthan warships. The aliens had already murdered one of Earth's greatest minds and were systematically torturing others. However, any military response would violate the Galactic Fleet Doctrine and could result in humanity being expelled from the Confederation. Admiral Hayes faced an impossible choice between protecting human lives and preserving humanity's place in galactic civilization. If Earth Fleet attacked the Vorthon force, other species would view humans as aggressive warmongers who could not be trusted to follow Confederation law. If they did nothing, the galaxy would see humans as weak victims who abandoned their own people when challenged. The solution came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Helen Carter had spent 8 years studying galactic law and found a loophole that previous species had never needed to exploit. The Fleet Doctrine prohibited official military action without Confederation approval, but it said nothing about individual commanders acting independently of their government's orders. Helen transmitted what became known as the Carter Protocol to Earth Fleet Command. The message was simple but revolutionary. Earth could not officially order military action against the Vorthon fleet, but individual ship commanders could choose to act on their own initiative. Any captain who engaged the enemy would not face court-martial proceedings afterward, regardless of the consequences. Admiral Hayes understood the elegant solution immediately. Earth would maintain official innocence while giving its commanders permission to do what honor demanded. The responsibility and consequences would fall entirely on the individual captains who chose to act, protecting Earth's government from diplomatic repercussions. Jake Morrison received the Carter Protocol aboard the EFS Horizon and understood its meaning perfectly. Earth Fleet Command could not order him to attack the Vorthan force, but they would not punish him if he chose to do so. The decision would be entirely his own, along with all the consequences that followed. Commander Ryan Walsh aboard the EFS Defender received the same message and reached identical conclusions. 2 Earth Fleet vessels were positioned within striking distance of the Vorthan force, but 15 heavy cruisers and 40 support ships vastly outnumbered them. Any attack would be suicidal for both human crews. Navigator Susan Blake ran continuous calculations on Vorthan fleet positions while the crisis developed. Her analysis revealed that the alien formation was designed for intimidation rather than optimal combat efficiency. The Vorthani had arranged their ships to surround the human colony vessels in a display of overwhelming force, but this positioning created tactical vulnerabilities. Security Chief Tony Martinez studied Vorthan ship designs and weapon systems, looking for weaknesses that human vessels could exploit. His research showed that Vorthan heavy cruisers had powerful shields and weapons but relatively slow maneuvering capabilities. Their formation depended on coordinated defensive fire to protect individual ships from attack. Dr. Kate Sullivan continued analyzing medical data from the colony ships, learning more about the effects of Vorthan neural probing on human physiology. The alien devices were causing massive brain damage to every human subjected to the procedures. Several more colonists had died during interrogation sessions, and dozens of others would never recover from their injuries. Professor Linda Ross managed to transmit psychological profiles of Vorthan leadership before her own capture and interrogation. Her analysis indicated that General Kresh was following a carefully planned strategy designed to provoke human retaliation. The Vorthan commander wanted Earth Fleet to attack his force, giving him justification for even more aggressive actions against human colonies. The trap was obvious but inescapable. General Kresh had positioned his fleet to make rescue impossible while torturing human civilians to death in full view of the galaxy. Any attempt to save the colonists would result in their massacre and provide the Vorthani with propaganda justification for future attacks on human space. Jake Morrison and Ryan Walsh communicated through encrypted channels while both commanders struggled with their impossible decision. Earth had given them permission to act independently, but the mathematics remained brutal. 2 ships could not defeat a Vorthan fleet, and any attack would certainly result in the death of everyone aboard both vessels. The calculation changed when Navigator Blake discovered a critical flaw in the Vorthan formation. Their ships were positioned to create overlapping fields of defensive fire, but this arrangement also meant that disabled vessels would block firing lanes for their neighbors. If both human ships attacked simultaneously and targeted specific points in the enemy formation, they could create a cascade failure in the Vorthan defensive grid. The plan required both human vessels to penetrate deep into the Vorthan formation before opening fire. They would have to get close enough to guarantee hits on critical targets while ensuring their own destruction in the process. The attack would cripple enough enemy ships to allow the colony vessels to escape, but neither human crew would survive. To see the result, Chief Engineer Bobby Chang worked to maximize the Horizon's offensive capabilities for one final battle. He rerouted power from life support and defensive systems to weapons and engines, knowing that the ship would not need those systems for very long. The modifications would give them slightly better firepower during their suicide run. Lieutenant. Commander Lisa Warren prepared final transmissions to Earth Fleet Command and the colony ships. Her messages would explain the reasoning behind their attack and provide tactical data that future human commanders could use against Vorthan forces. The information would ensure that their sacrifice served a purpose beyond the immediate rescue. Tactical. Officer Alex Rivera studied targeting solutions for the attack run while calculating the exact timing needed for maximum effect. His analysis showed that both ships had to begin their assault within seconds of each other to achieve the cascade failure that would save the colonists. Any delay would allow the Vorthani to adjust their formation and prevent the escape. Two captains made their final decision during a private communication at 1400 hours Galactic Standard Time. Both men understood that they were about to die, but they also knew that allowing the Vorthani to continue torturing human civilians would destroy Earth's credibility throughout the galaxy. Some principles were worth any price, including their lives and the lives of their crews. The EFS Horizon and EFS Defender began their final approach toward the Vorthon fleet at maximum acceleration. Both ships broadcast surrender requests on all frequencies to maintain the illusion of compliance until the last possible moment. General Kresh prepared to accept their surrender, believing that humans would always choose survival over honor when faced with overwhelming odds. The attack began at exactly 1427 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Both human ships dropped their surrender pretense simultaneously and opened fire at point-blank range on the Vorthon formation. The EFS Horizon targeted General Kresh's flagship, while the EFS Defender concentrated on the fleet's command and control vessels. The surprise was complete. Vorthon crews had been preparing to accept surrendering human vessels when plasma cannons and missile batteries erupted from ships that should have been helpless. The initial human salvo devastated 3 Vorthan heavy cruisers and disabled 2 more before the aliens could react to the unexpected assault. General Kresh died in the first seconds of combat when Jake Morrison's targeting solution placed 4 plasma bolts directly into the flagship's command center. The Vorthon general had been preparing a speech about human cowardice when his ship exploded around him. His death threw the entire alien fleet into confusion as subordinate commanders struggled to take control. Commander Ryan Walsh guided the EFS Defender through the Vorthon formation like a knife cutting through armor. His ship destroyed communication, relays, and sensor arrays, while Susan Blake calculated micro-jumps that kept them ahead of enemy targeting systems. The Defender lasted longer than anyone expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. The EFS Horizon died fighting, taking all hands including Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Commander Warren, Chief Engineer Chang, and Tactical Officer Rivera. Their ship had penetrated so deep into the Vorthan formation that enemy vessels couldn't fire without hitting each other. The sacrifice bought precious time for the colony ships to escape. Dr. Kate Sullivan aboard the Defender managed to transmit critical medical data about Vorthon neural probing to the fleeing colonists before her ship was destroyed. Her final transmission included treatment protocols for the brain damage caused by alien interrogation devices. The information would save dozens of lives among the rescued civilians. The cascade failure that Navigator Blake had predicted worked exactly as calculated. Disabled Vorthan ships blocked firing lanes while their crews struggled to restore power and weapons. The remaining vessels found themselves unable to coordinate defensive fire or pursue the escaping human colonists effectively. Captain Nicole. Thompson guided her colony ship through the gap created by the sacrifice of both Earth fleet vessels. The other 2 colony ships followed closely behind as Vorthon commanders tried desperately to reorganize their scattered forces. The humans had gained enough time to reach the hyperspace limit and jump to safety. The battle lasted 18 minutes from beginning to end. When it was over, 7 Vorthon heavy cruisers had been destroyed or disabled, including the flagship. Both human warships were gone, along with their entire crews. The 3 colony ships escaped with 47,000 survivors, having lost 3,000 people to Vorthan torture, and the battle itself. News of the engagement spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The images were shocking to species that had lived in peace for centuries. Two small human vessels had attacked a vastly superior force with no hope of survival, dying to save civilians they had never met. Most alien races could not understand such behavior. Ambassador Helen Carter used the tragedy to reshape galactic politics permanently. The Galactic Council passed emergency legislation known as the Human Doctrine, which explicitly prohibited neural probing of any species without their government's consent. The new laws established harsh penalties for fleet actions that resulted in civilian casualties. The Vorthon Empire faced immediate consequences for their actions. The Confederation imposed massive economic sanctions and reparations for the families of human victims. Several Vorthon colonies were placed under council supervision to prevent future aggressive actions. The Empire's dreams of galactic dominance died with General Kresh. Elder Marcus Finn of the Terran Commonwealth revealed that the Vorthani had been planning similar operations against 6 other species. Intelligence gathered from the destroyed flagship showed detailed plans for systematic conquest using the same tactics they had employed against humans. The sacrifice of the 2 Earth fleet vessels had prevented a galactic war. The memorial service took place at the exact coordinates where the EFS Horizon and EFS Defender made their final stand. Representatives from every Confederation species attended the ceremony, even former enemies who had opposed human membership. The sacrifice had earned respect that decades of diplomacy could never have achieved. A permanent memorial station was constructed at the battle site, bearing the simple inscription that became famous throughout human space. The words read, "They knew the cost, but still paid it." Below that, in smaller text, appeared Captain Morrison's final transmission. "Some prices are worth paying. Some lines cannot be crossed." Dr. Frank Butler's research, saved on secure drives that survived the neural probing, led to breakthrough, discoveries that advanced galactic civilization by centuries. His theories about quantum field manipulation revolutionized space travel and energy production for all species. The knowledge he died protecting became a gift to the galaxy. Professor Linda Ross's psychological studies of the crisis helped establish new protocols for interspecies conflict resolution. Her work ensured that future disputes would be handled through proper diplomatic channels rather than military intimidation. The torture she endured contributed to laws protecting civilian populations throughout the galaxy. The colony ships successfully established their research outpost on the world they had been trying to reach. New Geneva became a center for cooperative scientific research involving all Confederation species. The colony prospered as a symbol of what could be achieved when different races worked together instead of fighting. Ambassador Carter returned to Earth as a hero, but she carried the weight of knowing that diplomatic failures had led to hundreds of deaths. She spent the rest of her career ensuring that such a crisis would never happen again. Her reforms to Confederation law prevented future tragedies and established her as one of the most respected figures in galactic politics. Years later, a new Earth fleet captain named Victoria Grant received her first deep space assignment. As she took command of the EFS Valor at the coordinates where Morrison and Walsh had died, she understood that she carried more than just Earth's flag. She bore the responsibility of proving that their sacrifice had meaning. The galaxy watched and remembered. Other species learned the true meaning of the unwritten rule about Earth's fleet. Humans were not the strongest or smartest race in the galaxy, but they were the only ones willing to pay any price to defend their principles. That knowledge changed everything about how the galaxy viewed humanity. The Vorthon Empire never recovered from the disaster. Their military power was broken, their expansion plans abandoned, and their reputation destroyed. Future generations of Vorthani would learn about the folly of underestimating human determination. The lesson came at a terrible cost for both species. Peace returned to the galaxy, but it was a different kind of peace than before. Every species understood that there were lines that could not be crossed without consequences. The sacrifice of 2 small ships and their crews had established a new balance of power based on respect rather than fear. 3 months after the battle, Captain Victoria Grant stood on the bridge of the EFS Valor as her ship approached the memorial coordinates. The permanent station built at the site gleamed against the star field like a beacon of remembrance. Ships from dozens of species had traveled here to pay respects to the crews who died defending principles that most aliens were still learning to understand. The memorial station operated continuously, staffed by volunteers from every confederation, species. Vorthon engineers worked alongside human technicians to maintain the facility, their presence a constant reminder of the price paid for their government's aggression. The former enemies now collaborated on projects that honored the dead while serving the living. Victoria had known Jake Morrison personally during her academy training. He had been a mentor figure who taught young officers about the responsibilities that came with commanding Earth fleet vessels. His lessons about duty and sacrifice had seemed theoretical then, but the memorial station made them brutally real. Dr. Sarah Walsh, younger sister of the late Commander Ryan Walsh, served as the memorial's chief administrator. She had dedicated her life to ensuring that the sacrifice of both crews would never be forgotten. Her brother's final message had included personal recordings for family members, speaking about honor and the prices worth paying for peace. The Galactic Council had undergone massive reforms following the crisis. Ambassador Helen Carter led a committee that restructured how interspecies disputes were handled, creating rapid response protocols that prevented situations from escalating to violence. Her work earned universal respect, but she never forgot the cost of her initial diplomatic failures. Elder Marcus Finn of the Terran Commonwealth had become an unofficial historian of Vorthon aggression throughout the galaxy. His research documented how General Kresh's tactics had been used against multiple species over centuries, always following the same pattern of escalation and provocation. The information helped prevent similar crises from developing elsewhere. The human doctrine passed by the Council included provisions that went far beyond the original neural probing prohibitions. New laws protected civilian populations during military operations and established clear penalties for commanders who targeted non-combatants. The legislation was nicknamed Morrison's Law, in honor of the captain who died implementing its principles. Captain Nicole Thompson had recovered from her ordeal aboard the colony ship and now commanded the research station at New Geneva. The Tassana facility had become a model for interspecies cooperation, with scientists from every Confederation race working together on projects that benefited all civilizations. Thompson often spoke about the debt they owed to the crews who died saving them. The surviving colonists included many who bore permanent scars from Vorthon neural probing. Dr. Kate Sullivan's final transmission had provided medical protocols that saved lives, but dozens of victims would never fully recover from their brain injuries. These survivors became living reminders of what happened when civilized rules were abandoned. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Warren's family had received her final communications about the battle's tactical lessons. Her analysis of Vorthon fleet weaknesses became required reading at Earth Fleet Academy, ensuring that future officers would be prepared for similar situations. Her voice recordings described the calm determination that had characterized the crew's final hours. Chief Engineer Bobby Chang's modifications to the Horizon systems were studied by military engineers throughout human space. His techniques for maximizing combat effectiveness during suicide missions became part of standard emergency protocols. The knowledge he died creating would help future crews face impossible odds with better chances of success. Tactical Officer Alex Rivera's targeting solutions were preserved in Earth Fleet's tactical database. His calculations had made the Cascade failure possible, turning a hopeless sacrifice into a strategic victory that saved thousands of lives. Military academies used his work to teach students about precision under extreme pressure. Navigator Susan Blake's hyperspace calculations had enabled the EFS Defender to survive longer than anyone expected during the final battle. Her techniques for combat micro-jumping became standard training for all Earth Fleet navigators. The extra minutes her skills had provided allowed Dr. Sullivan to transmit the medical data that saved lives. Security Chief Tony Martinez's analysis of Vorthon military psychology had proven accurate during the crisis. His predictions about enemy behavior patterns helped both human ships coordinate their attack for maximum effectiveness. His insights into alien thinking became required study material for officers assigned to frontier duty. The Vorthon Empire struggled with the consequences of their actions long after the immediate crisis ended. Economic sanctions had crippled their expansion plans, while reparation payments consumed massive resources. Many Vorthani civilians questioned their government's aggressive policies for the first time in centuries. New Vorthon leadership emerged as the old military hierarchy was purged following General Kresh's death. Ambassador Senth, a moderate Vorthon diplomat, worked to rebuild relationships with other species while acknowledging his people's responsibility for the tragedy. His efforts slowly began restoring Vorthon credibility within the Confederation. The Zephyrian Alliance had initially supported Vorthon actions during the crisis, but the evidence of torture and murder shocked their insectoid sensibilities. Their collective leadership issued formal apologies to humanity and established cultural exchange programs designed to improve understanding between species. The crystalline hegemony's emphasis on order had led them to support Vorthon security measures, without considering the moral implications. The silicon-based beings struggled to understand concepts like sacrifice and honor, but they began studying human behavior patterns to comprehend why the crews had chosen death over surrender. Professor Linda Ross had survived her ordeal, but carried permanent neurological damage from Vorthon interrogation procedures. She continued her research into interspecies psychology from her recovery facility, using her own experiences to develop better treatment protocols for torture victims. Her work helped dozens of other survivors cope with their trauma. Dr. Frank Butler's sacrifice had protected quantum field research that revolutionized galactic technology within 5 years. His theories enabled faster-than-light communication systems and more efficient space drives that benefited every species. The knowledge he died protecting became his greatest legacy to galactic civilization. The research data saved by Protocol 7 was eventually recovered from backup systems and completed by other scientists. Butler's quantum field equations solved energy problems that had puzzled researchers for centuries, leading to technological advances that transformed life throughout the galaxy. His death had meaning beyond the immediate tactical situation. Earth Fleet Academy established the Morrison Walsh Memorial Program for advanced tactical training. The curriculum included case studies of impossible decisions and the psychology of sacrifice in military service. Graduates learned that some situations required choosing between terrible options and that honor sometimes demanded paying the ultimate price. The memorial station received visitors from every corner of the galaxy. As the story of the battle spread throughout known space, parents brought children to learn about courage and principle, while military officers studied the tactical lessons preserved in the station's archives. The site became a pilgrimage destination for those seeking to understand human nature. Captain Victoria Grant completed her tour of the memorial station and prepared to continue her patrol mission. Her ship carried the same mission as those that had died here, protecting human interests while maintaining galactic peace. The responsibility felt heavier after seeing the monument to those who had paid the ultimate price for their principles. 5 years after the memorial battle, Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the transformation that had swept through galactic civilization. The human doctrine had changed more than just military law. It had altered how species interacted with each other on every level. The sacrifice of 2 ship crews had created ripple effects that continued spreading throughout known space. Earth Fleet Academy now trained officers from 6 different species alongside human cadets. The integrated program helped alien students understand human tactical thinking while teaching Earth's officers about diverse military philosophies. Former enemies learned to work together through shared respect for courage and principle. Commander Rachel Stone led the first joint Earth-Vorthan patrol mission through the former crisis zone. Her crew included Vorthan officers who had volunteered for the dangerous assignment of rebuilding trust between their species. The partnership remained fragile, but progress was measurable in the cooperation between former enemies. The Vorthan military had undergone complete restructuring following the disaster of General Kresh's aggression. New commanders like Colonel Thane emphasized defensive strategies and diplomatic solutions over conquest and intimidation. The Empire's expansion policies were abandoned in favor of internal development and peaceful trade. Ambassador Senth worked tirelessly to repair Vorthan relationships throughout the galaxy. His species had lost their position as a major power, but they gained something more valuable in the long term. Other civilizations began to see Vorthani as potential partners rather than threats, opening opportunities that aggression had never provided. Dr. Sarah Walsh expanded the Memorial Station into a research facility dedicated to conflict resolution and interspecies understanding. Scientists from every Confederation race collaborated on projects designed to prevent future tragedies. The station became a symbol of what could be achieved when former enemies chose cooperation over conflict. The Terran Commonwealth experienced a renaissance as other species learned about their near extinction at Vorthan hands. Elder Marcus Finn's historical research revealed similar patterns of aggression against dozens of civilizations throughout galactic history. His work helped identify potential crisis situations before they could escalate to violence. Captain Nicole Thompson published her account of the colony ship crisis, providing detailed insights into civilian experiences during military operations. Her book became required reading for officers throughout the galaxy, helping military personnel understand the human cost of their decisions. The personal stories resonated with readers across species barriers. The survivors of Vorthan Neural Probing formed a support network that provided treatment and counseling for torture victims throughout the galaxy. Their experiences, terrible as they were, became valuable resources for helping others recover from similar trauma. Professor Linda Ross led therapeutic programs that restored dignity to those who had suffered. Lieutenant Angela Foster joined Earth Fleet specifically because of the Memorial Battle's inspiration. Her academy thesis analyzed the tactical decisions that made the sacrifice effective rather than merely tragic. Foster's research became part of standard curriculum for officers learning about desperate situation management and strategic sacrifice. The quantum field research saved by Dr. Butler's death revolutionized space travel for all species within a decade. Faster ships meant better communication between distant colonies and more efficient trade routes that benefited everyone. The elderly scientist's theories transformed galactic civilization in ways he had never imagined possible. Chief Petty Officer Mike Sullivan, nephew of the late Dr. Kate Sullivan, dedicated his medical career to treating neurological injuries caused by alien technology. His aunt's final transmission had provided the foundation for protocols that saved dozens of lives. Mike's work continued her legacy of service to those who suffered in the line of duty. The Zephyrian Alliance established cultural exchange programs with humanity to better understand the concept of individual sacrifice for collective benefit. Their insectoid society struggled with the idea of choosing death over survival, but they gradually developed respect for human values. The exchanges created unexpected friendships between very different species. The crystalline hegemony modified their legal systems to include provisions for individual rights and moral considerations. Their silicon-based minds had previously focused only on logical efficiency, but exposure to human sacrifice taught them about the importance of principle over pragmatism. The changes improved conditions for organic species throughout their territory. Engineer Carlos Rivera, brother of the late tactical officer Alex Rivera, joined the Memorial Station's maintenance crew to honor his sibling's memory. His work ensuring that the facility operated perfectly became a form of living tribute to those who died. Carlos often spoke with visitors about his brother's dedication to precision and duty. Navigator Betty Chang daughter of the late chief. Engineer Bobby Chang followed her father into Earth Fleet service with a specialization in emergency combat modifications. Her research into maximizing ship performance during crisis situations saved lives in several subsequent conflicts. She carried forward her father's legacy of engineering excellence under pressure. The memorial station received a permanent addition when the recovered wreckage of both destroyed ships was incorporated into the structure. Visitors could see the actual hull fragments and weapon systems that had made the sacrifice possible. The physical evidence made the story real for those who had not lived through the crisis. Ambassador Helen Carter established the Carter Institute for Galactic Diplomacy, training negotiators from every species in conflict prevention and resolution techniques. Her curriculum emphasized understanding different cultural values while maintaining firm principles about individual rights. The Institute graduated diplomats who prevented dozens of potential crises. The Vorthan Reparations Fund continued providing support for human victims and their families decades after the original crisis. The payment served as a constant reminder to Vorthan leadership about the cost of aggression while helping survivors rebuild their lives. The fund also supported research into treating trauma caused by interspecies conflicts. Earth's population learned about the battle through documentary programs and educational materials that emphasized the importance of standing up for principles regardless of personal cost. Children grew up understanding that some things were worth fighting for. Even when victory seemed impossible, the story became part of human cultural identity. Military historians from every species studied the tactical lessons of the memorial battle, learning how desperate situations could be turned into strategic victories through careful planning and absolute commitment. The engagement was analyzed in war colleges throughout the galaxy as an example of effective sacrifice rather than meaningless loss. The Battle of Memorial Station, as historians came to call it, marked the end of an era when might made right in galactic politics. The New Age emphasized negotiation and mutual respect over intimidation and conquest. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together on projects that benefited all civilizations. Captain Victoria Grant completed her tour at the memorial coordinates and received orders to patrol the frontier regions where new crises might develop. Her ship carried the lessons learned from the sacrifice of those who came before, ready to apply those teachings to whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was safer because of what two crews had died to defend. The transformation continued, spreading throughout known space as each generation learned about the price of freedom and the value of principle. The memorial battle had proven that even the smallest actions could change the course of galactic history when motivated by absolute commitment to what was right. The lesson would endure as long as sentient beings remembered the cost of peace. 20 years had passed since the memorial battle, and the galaxy had grown accustomed to peace. Captain Victoria Grant now held the rank of Admiral and commanded the Earth Fleet's frontier operations from her flagship, the EFS Legacy. The ship bore the names of Morrison and Walsh engraved on its bridge, a constant reminder of the principles that guided human military service. The Memorial Station had evolved into Memorial University, the galaxy's premier institution for interspecies studies and conflict resolution. Dr. Sarah Walsh served as chancellor, overseeing programs that brought together students from 43 different civilizations. The campus included preserved sections of both destroyed ships, allowing new generations to touch the actual metal that had changed galactic history. Young cadet Peter Morrison, grandson of the late Captain Jake Morrison, prepared for his first assignment aboard a frontier patrol vessel. He carried his grandfather's service record and wore the family name with pride and responsibility. The academy had taught him about sacrifice and duty, but he hoped never to face the choices that had made his grandfather famous. The Vorthan Empire had become one of humanity's closest allies in the decades following the crisis. Ambassador Synth, now elderly by Vorthan standards, worked with human diplomats to establish joint colonies throughout previously contested regions. The former enemies had learned to trust each other through shared commitment to peaceful expansion. Commander Lisa Park, a Korean-American officer who had studied the Memorial Battle extensively, led a joint human-Vorthan exploration mission into uncharted space. Her crew included descendants of both species' veterans, working together to discover new worlds suitable for cooperative settlement. The partnership represented everything the original sacrifice had been meant to achieve. The quantum field technologies, developed from Dr. Butler's research, had revolutionized galactic civilization beyond recognition. Travel times between star systems had decreased dramatically, allowing real-time communication across vast distances for the first time in galactic history. The elderly scientist's theories had become the foundation for technological advances that seemed impossible decades earlier. Professor Maria Ross, daughter of the late Professor Linda Ross, continued her mother's work in interspecies psychology, while serving as a counselor for students at Memorial University. Her research into trauma recovery had helped thousands of beings throughout the galaxy heal from conflicts and misunderstandings. She often spoke about her mother's courage in the face of torture and interrogation. The memorial coordinates had become a gathering place for annual remembrance ceremonies attended by representatives from every Confederation species. The events included readings from the final transmissions of both destroyed crews, ensuring that their words would never be forgotten. Children who attended these ceremonies grew up understanding the importance of standing up for principles regardless of personal cost. Fleet Admiral Patricia Hayes, now retired, served as an advisor to the Galactic Council on Military Ethics and Interspecies Conflict Prevention. Her experience during the Memorial Crisis had shaped policies that prevented similar tragedies throughout known space. She often visited the Memorial Station to honor those who had died following orders she had been unable to give. The Carter Institute had trained over 10,000 diplomats from dozens of species in the decades since its establishment. Ambassador Helen Carter, though retired from active service, continued developing new techniques for preventing conflicts before they escalated to violence. Her methods had resolved hundreds of potential crises throughout the galaxy. Ensign Robert Chang, nephew of the late Chief Engineer Bobby Chang, worked in the Memorial Station's engineering section while completing his advanced studies. His uncle's techniques for emergency ship modifications had become standard training for all fleet engineers. Robert's research focused on developing new defensive technologies that could protect civilians during military conflicts. Dr. Alan Sullivan, son of the late Dr. Kate Sullivan, directed the Medical Research Division at Memorial University. His mother's final transmission had provided the foundation for treating neurological injuries caused by interspecies technology incompatibilities. Alan's work continued advancing medical understanding that helped beings throughout the galaxy live healthier lives. The Terran Commonwealth had regained much of their lost territory and population in the years following the Memorial Battle. Elder Marcus Finn's historical research had exposed Vorthan aggression against dozens of species, leading to reparations and support for recovery efforts. The Terrans became strong advocates for other species that had suffered similar oppression. Captain Nicole Thompson, now retired from active service, wrote her final book about the long-term effects of the Memorial Crisis on galactic civilization. Her perspective as both a victim and survivor provided unique insights into how individuals could maintain hope and dignity even in desperate circumstances. The book became a bestseller throughout human space and beyond. The Zephyrian Alliance had developed cultural exchange programs with humanity that produced unexpected innovations in technology and art. Their collective society learned to appreciate individual sacrifice while humans gained understanding of community cooperation. The partnerships created hybrid technologies that neither species could have developed alone. The crystalline hegemony incorporated human concepts of individual rights and moral principles into their legal systems, creating more flexible approaches to justice that considered emotional and ethical factors alongside logical efficiency. Their society became more welcoming to organic species seeking trade and diplomatic relationships. New species continued joining the Galactic Confederation, and each received orientation about the memorial battle as part of their integration process. The story served as both warning and inspiration, demonstrating the consequences of aggression while showing how principles could triumph over seemingly impossible odds. Lieutenant James Foster, son of the Academy graduate Angela Foster, prepared for his first command assignment aboard a patrol vessel operating near the memorial coordinates. His mother's research into desperate situation management had become required reading for all fleet officers. James hoped to honor her legacy while never needing to apply her most extreme lessons. The wreckage displays at Memorial University included interactive simulations that allowed visitors to experience the final battle from multiple perspectives. Students could understand the tactical decisions made by both human crews while learning about the strategic thinking that made their sacrifice effective rather than merely tragic. The programs helped train new generations of military leaders who understood the true cost of their decisions. Admiral Victoria Grant prepared for her final inspection tour of the memorial station before retirement. Her career had spanned the transformation of galactic civilization from a collection of suspicious rivals to a cooperative alliance of peaceful species. She had never been forced to make the ultimate choice that Morrison and Walsh faced, but she carried their example with her throughout her service. The memorial battle had become legend throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless stories and cultural works that spread the message of principled resistance to aggression. Children of every species learned about the humans who chose death over surrender, and the lesson shaped their understanding of right and wrong. The sacrifice continued influencing galactic civilization decades after the original events. Fleet. Communications protocols still included references to the Carter Protocol, reminding commanders that some decisions transcended official orders and required individual moral courage. The principle that officers must sometimes choose between following orders and following conscience had been validated by the memorial battle's results. The peace that followed the memorial crisis had lasted longer than any previous period in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for millennia worked together on projects that benefited all civilizations. The transformation demonstrated that even the most entrenched conflicts could be resolved when enough people committed to choosing cooperation over conquest. As Admiral Grant prepared to leave active service, she recorded her final log entry at the exact coordinates where two ships and their crews had changed galactic history forever. Her words would join the archive of testimonials from those who had learned from the memorial battle's lessons. The station would continue its eternal watch over the peace that sacrifice had purchased, ensuring that future generations remembered the price of freedom and the value of principle in a galaxy that had learned to choose wisdom over war.